Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of the Amazing Fantasy. Now, it does say adult fantasy, but it's called Amazing Fantasy. And this is Lee, Ditko, Kirby, also there's Heck, lots of other people also in this book. And the Terror of Timbooba. Well, actually, there's a lot more than that. Now, it's a fairly thin omnibus, obviously from Marvel. Now, this one came out quite a few years ago. There was an earlier version of this, and that came out about 2007. So you might be able to find copies of that, but it was 416 pages. This one, I think, is about 448 pages. However, slightly confusingly, the cover here is the one that was used in the 2007. Notice online, the cover for the 2020 is slightly different. So I don't know why I've got the cover that was used for the 2007. But the one I've got is obviously was 2021 because I've noticed inside it says 2019. But you can see the stories on the back. You can see Amazing Adventures. Now, it was known as Amazing Adventures for the first 6 issues. Then it was Amazing Adult Fantasy. And then it became, of course, the classic Amazing Fantasy. And that was issue 15 with Spider-Man. So let's just go through the book. Now, I think my copy was about £50, £60. Still available, so you should be able to buy it around about 70, I suspect, maybe less. And you can see all the contents there. So let's just go through the book. Now, I think it's just lovely. And I'm just going to remove this so you can see that. Just makes it easy to hold. And you can see there, Amazing Fantasy Omnibus. It's one of those collections that I think they really should bring out more of these sort of things, like maybe Tales of Suspense, maybe a sort of omnibus edition, maybe 2 volumes or something, because I think there's a lot of stories that have not been included in an omnibus as yet. There's also others, and I've just got here another book, obviously, before I quickly go through this one. This, I think, is just brilliant. I've got the 62, 63, etc. But this one is brilliant because you can see the sort of books that Marvel were bringing out around the 1960s. These ones are very early 1960s, the earliest sort of Marvel Universe stories. And you've got Cassie there, which wasn't particularly brilliant, but you've also got Life with Millie. Some of those were really good. Patsy Walker. Lots of these stories have yet to be turned into an omnibus, so it would be great. I'd love to see an omnibus edition of Linda Carter, Student Nurse. I think it was about 9 issues. Obviously, love romance. You've got, obviously, a journey into mystery. Again, lots and lots of stories that have never really been into omnibus collections. Obviously, the Thor stories have, but not those. And you've also got Rawhide, Teenage Romance as well. So there's a lot of great stories they could still reprint and put into these sort of fairly thin volumes, but it would be great to see. Anyway, that's my quick rant about what I think Marvel should be doing, but I suspect they never will. Who knows? You've got here Amazing Fantasy Omnibus, and there you've got Stan Lee, obviously there, Ditko and Kirby. And let's just go through and show the various stories. Most of these stories are very, very short, but the great thing about them, I think more than anything, is that you can really see some of the early origins of sort of Fantastic Four. Sort of bits and pieces you think, oh, that looks remarkably like something from Fantastic Four or whatever. Various stories, other stories as well. You can see there, Dick Ayers, George Klein. There were obviously letterers there, and you can see the details there. And you can see then all the different details. So it was 1961, so obviously it's about the same time as Fantastic Four was being done. So you've got September 61, October 61, all the way through, obviously, until 1962 with the Amazing Fantasy. It's always got a lovely little introduction there. Always love a good introduction. You can certainly see the sort of characters that appear quite regularly in the Marvel Universe. And you've got a whole variety of different stories there. Tor was the first one. Now, to buy these now, very hard. I mean, Amazing Adventures, they do turn up. I've seen copies of over the years. The stories, they're good. Sometimes you can see Tor, a bit like Thor, I suppose, but Tor in this case. Obviously, in this case, it's actually some massive creature. There was lots of these sort of monster or creature stories. But you can also see lots of things that turn up in a lot like Fantastic Four as well. And obviously some very dubious characters there. You know, where characters in green and gloating or whatever. And I'm Alive, Paul Ramsey is innocent, etc. Midnight in the Wax Museum, sort of story again that sort of like you think of Doctor Strange maybe. Obviously, again, of course, Steve Ditko's brilliant artwork. And the one thing I love about these, and you can always work out the various origins of all the stories you've got there, you can see V163. the job code for the books. So it's just great to put them all in sort of order. Obviously, people have. But you can certainly see the style of, obviously, Doctor Strange, that early sort of period there. They were great stories. Dr. Droom, or Drom, that's a brilliant. Obviously, Doctor Doom, near enough the same, isn't it? Doctor Doom, sort of the way he hovered over in the first story. Doctor Droom, exactly the same. And also, I Am the Fantastic. Very much, obviously, Fantastic Four. Great little character. Of course, disappeared. I think came back a little bit later as Dr. Druid. Obviously, old characters never totally die. Or maybe Manu has. I don't know. I led the strange search for Manu. Now, many of these ones, quite often you've got characters, and again, they always often look like some of the other characters as well. You think, oh, that looks like Don Blake or whatever. There's all characters you think. But they're great stories still, all the same. And there's another Dr. Drum there. Just brilliant, The World Below. Yeah, I think he only had about like 6 issues, and that was that. But again, some of the characters did recur. Obviously, variations of them. You got We Were Trapped in the Twilight World. I think they were good. I mean, I had a few of the issues of these sort of ones over the years, but I wish I'd kept them because they are, like I say, they're very, very hard to get. So it's one of those. But again, great little stories. Great little Jack Kirby there, superb artwork. Of course, Teddy Bear. Obviously, Ditko straight away. You can tell Ditko there. Just love that. Ditko's artwork was always superb. My favourite. More so than Kirby. I know lots of people. But even there, you got there. Look at that. Zemu. Doctor meets Zemu. Again, similar sort of characters turning up. Well, the names anyway, they were quite often reused over and over. But they're always like aliens, are always hidden in sort of plain sight, which I suppose was like the Skrulls. So they sort of have characters that sort of, obviously, they love to use, and obviously hypnotism to actually get what they want from. He used that quite a lot. That was a real sort of end of the story. Zap someone, finish. I Am Robot X. Again, similar sort of things that some of the characters, you are already too late, mortals. Nothing can stop me now. Destroy him before it's too late. Who or what was Boot Black? Question mark, question mark. Always love that use of the question mark all over there as well. Again, great little story. And Monsteroso. Some of the names were Monsteroso. But the thing is, there's a twist, of course, in this story, which is, of course, always a twist in these stories. But there's actually one scene, and I love the cops in here. You got all of there's like scenes with the cops. And there's one, and I probably can't find it now because it's always, there it is. Look at that. That is definitely straight out of Fantastic Four #1. That scene there, you know, where the start bit where they all look up and you can. And also, of course, you got that there, which is just great. That's just definitely can see that early Fantastic Four #1 in that. The Watchers. Now, there's not really that many with Don Heck in. I think this might even be the only Don Heck. But again, some really great artwork. They really should bring out, and hopefully it will, with the Atlas Comic Library. I mean, Don Heck, I think, did quite a bit in Atlas, so it would be lovely to see a nice Atlas artist edition of his work. He did great stuff, and of course, you got the Joker there. Now, of course, the suspense ones, they brought out Suspense Omnibus 1 and 2 for Ditko, so all these stories have been obviously reprinted already in that. And another sort of, now this creature, obviously looking very much like the creature who crushed the earth. Obviously, the Thing, and actually quite a lot of the scenes look like the Mole Man story. There's odd sort of thing. Oh, that looks very, very similar. Even some of the characters that turn up down there. But that's, and these sort of things. Again, another one where you sort of got things that used a bit later in the Fantastic Four one. The Fourth Man. And Muscle Man. Thing about these stories, which is another, this one's all crude. Dr. Droom. Now, so the Dr. Droom story is starting to look a bit, not that great by this time. Didn't even have a nice splash there. But he's sort of like, it's not even, who did the artwork? That wasn't Ryman. Yeah, it wasn't even obviously Kirby at that point. Very strange. But Amazing Fantasy, adult fantasy. Something they decided to stick adult fantasy. I always loved this contents. I suppose in many ways it wasted a page. But it's still, I always loved it. They could have always, of course, put it on the inner page, couldn't they? But they didn't, obviously, in this case. Why won't they believe me? Again, some of these stories where people not believing, and of course it all turns out that he solves it and it's all resolved. The Last Man, I love these ones. Last Man on Earth. I Am Legend, all those sort of things. Obviously, it's not that story, but still, the guy obviously decides, smiling away, a bit Jameson-like sort of thing there. But he thinks, obviously, atomic explosions outside, so he's down. The usual twist at the end. But they did that story a few times, I think. Witch Hunt, that's a good one as well. Again, some of the characters look very familiar that turn up again and again. The next issue, and also they did that as well. Another, in a sense, a waste of a page. The next issue, let's put the contents and also put next issue of the magazine that respects your intelligence. And some of them actually were very good. Were they as great as obviously the EC comics? Well, questionable. Everyone likes a ghost story, and it was a mix. It was a mix. You had science fiction stories, you had some like not horror, but you certainly had some sort of nice spooky tales that were thrown. The Eyes of Edward Morgo. So you got that. Another hypnotist story. I think that was a hypnotist. Yes, it was a hypnotist story, but it was, yeah, it wasn't as good as he thought he was. Or was he too good? However, again, some great artwork. And I've always loved Ditko with the old blues and the moonlight. Great, just wonderful sort of doing those stories like that. Again, coming attractions, featured next issue. I came from the Black Void. The Genie lives. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff. And We Are the Monsters sort of story. And again, contents just so used. But of course, you've got the cover there. And The Terror of Timbu Bar. That's always good, isn't it? The magazine that respects intelligence. And of course, many other wonders of the universe, but none as fantastic. That sort of thing that was used in The Silver Surfer, that sort of character, where obviously goes on a sort of march. And anyway, there's the usual twist at the end. Not to spoil the story. And of course, there's always stories about death, sort of trying to capture death. So you got there. Obviously, used later on for the Sandman stories. That's always a good one as well. I Came from the Black Void. Oh, the one story I was looking for, and I can't find it. Typical. Always the way. Oh, it was the one with the kids. They go looking. Oh, they find. Look at that. What at that? Old book sale. You can't beat an old book sale. Look at that. Sort of. Imagine picking that up. Of course, probably going for old book sale, you pick up the Amazing Fantasy 15. You wouldn't go for the one with the genie thing. And of course, probably most people with the genie would turn around and say, could I have 500 copies of the Amazing Fantasy 15? Would something go wrong there? It always does. Whenever those stories, there must be a twist. Possibly everyone would, of course, chase after you. You'd have to be on the run all the time because what would happen, of course, the genie would steal all the copies of the Amazing Fantasy. So you obviously, they'd all be after you. You'd be put in prison by the end of the story, wouldn't you? That would be the twist. There's always got to be a twist. You'd have to say that in the part of the thing, wouldn't it? But not take them. Maybe there'd be a mistake in the printing or something. Those who change, he warned them not to meddle with the past. But would they? Of course not. Everyone goes and they go into the past, and there's always the twist there. And that has been done. Oh, again, that same book turns up. 101 Fairy Tales. What a book title. 101. The way you write that, wouldn't you? But still. Oh, I love these ones. The ones where it's the worlds. Such a pity. All the wonderful, all these beautiful worlds. That was done quite a few times as well. Mr. Universe, that's a great one. Mr. Universe, I mean, look at that. That would be pretty impressive. And I mean, unless that guy was only about 3 or 4 pounds weight, that would be impressive to do. Because he looks like he must weigh about 1,000. However, the Inhuman form, again, lots of the stories where they did that one where it was an alien in a human form, but it's still good. Or people thinking they've escaped from something. They always get trapped in a prison and they've done so. Or The Secret of the Universe, and they go flying off, obviously, eternity, and they go to the edge of the universe to find out what's there. And there's a twist again. They did that every time. Where Walks the Ghost? And this one, Coming Attractions. Due to the many interesting and provocative, unusual way, provocative letters and comments, the next great issue of Amazing Adult Fantasy will feature, in addition to its usual sensational offbeat letters to the editor. Hang on, offbeat, a stimulating new feature, letters to the editor. That's good. They could have included that right from the start, couldn't they? Including the amazing scoreboard. Oh, ratings. It's very hard to read script, isn't it, when you read that? Sorry. So hurry and send your letters to Amazing Adult Fantasy. Aha. So this was issue. So they obviously, right, they were still called obviously Amazing Adult Fantasy at that point, weren't they? So contents, obviously the last issue was the only one where they changed. But again, you still got the contents there. Living statues. I love those stories. There's living statues there. And there it is. Amazing Adult Fantasy. So fan page, who do we get? I always love the fact that you said Sam Smith, Boston, Massachusetts. John Doe, afraid to sign his real name. Why? Anyway, why not? I hope you haven't done anything wrong. I bought a copy of Amazing Adult Fantasy and I'm only 16-year-old. Not legally an adult. Now, maybe that's why they dropped it. Maybe that was the problem. People were thinking, you know what? And I think, yes, Amazing Fantasy. But of course, they dropped it. So obviously, it probably was a good idea. I've always had that with Marvel Mystery Comics. Was it called Marvel Comics or was it called Marvel Mystery Comics? Those things. It should have just been called Marvel Comics. It just threw confusion. I always think, I love this one. Look at this character. Brilliant. Absolutely. That is first rate, isn't it? Great. And some of these characters could have been potential characters, obviously, for the future stories. Obviously, most of them didn't. Now, if Marvel had had lots and lots, of course, they'd lost the ability to have lots and lots of comics. They probably would have flooded the market with tons of stories based on some of the characters in here. Not all of them, of course. Some of them are just one-offs. But you've got lots of characters where you think, oh, you know what? That would have been really good as a 10 or 15 page, 15 story later. But still, there's another one with all the editors. Oh, Amazing Scoreboard, number 11. And it says favourite story, second best, third place, runners up. Wonder why I didn't include the worst one. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? Including the worst story. But they were all positive letters. Which makes it a bit suspicious, doesn't it? They were all positive. I mean, they were great stories. But they were all still daft stories as well. I mean, not all of them are brilliant. This one's a great one. And this one's very much a character that should have turned up, at least in the X-Men. I always felt that they should have continued on that story, The Man in Sky. And when they did a reprint recently of the X-Men one, it did include, somewhere along the line, this story. Because it's just an obvious X-Men mutant story. And again, looking very much like a certain Peter Parker at this point. So obviously he was in mind, that character there. Oh, it's ones that obviously not. Some of the Ditkos, sometimes you look at it and think, not. This one's a bit more of an unusual story. So they're not all, I think, masterpieces. But there is, of course, the one masterpiece that, of course, spawned a complete Marvel universe. And this is the problem, I think, for lots of these collections recently, where always, is that all the stories, the other stories, never ever get reprinted, other than obviously in collections like this. But I would love to see, like the ones with the Iron Man, Iron Man Tales of Suspense. I mean, have they been reprinted? The ones that are in issue 39 and 40, etc. Because, of course, they print that one, but they never print the other stories. And they're probably reasonable. But this is a great story, of course. It's just a classic. It's been told many, many times and redone to the point of, what's his name, and every variation under the sun. And, of course, they had the spider. He goes down there. Very careless, wasn't it, having that. And spider, it bit me. Why is it burning? So why is it glowing? Well, luckily, it helped. He suddenly got powers. And, of course, that kid was the first person. Mummy, look at that man walking outside the building. That's the last horror movie. What were you doing? Taking the kid to a horror movie? Really? I must admit, saying that, I got dragged to quite a lot of horror movies when I was younger. So that's not, I was like about 6 or 7. I was thinking, why did I get dragged to a horror movie? That sort of thing. I wouldn't worry about probably. But of course, it's classic. It's a classic tale. Poor old Uncle Ben, one of the shortest appearances. But he should have had a bit longer, maybe 2 or 3 issues. You could have built him up for a bit. But of course it makes, who is Spider-Man? Who is the Spider-Man, I should say? Spider-Man wins Showbiz Award. Wonder why he never mentions that. Has it got a little trophy on his sort of desk or something back in his home? Never mentions that, does he now? Spider-Man slated for a new TV series. They should have done that. Should have had a TV series in there with that one, with Spidey there. If they got ahead of themselves, they could have put like Netflix or something. That would have been weird, wouldn't it? I love the fact they always included, of course, face there. That's just great. You can see the eyes at that point. The bell ringer. You got the bell ringer story. So tale was told to us. I bet. It was told by Stan Lee. But still, you got, of course, Mummy's story as well. You can't beat a good old Mummy story. And again, some of the other characters are all very much... Oh, important announcement from the editor. Yes, an important announcement. And it does actually say the format of Amazing has changed. Amazing. So they called it Amazing. Not fantasy, Amazing. I wonder if they would have dropped that. Calling it Amazing, maybe it would have just become Amazing. You got the Amazing Spider-Man, maybe they would have gone Amazing. But obviously it didn't, and that was it. If they had been allowed, I suppose, they could have split the story off and they could have had Amazing continue, because they were great little stories. But of course, that was it. Spider-Man, I wonder why they never did sort of short stories in Spider-Man. They could have done that, couldn't they? But still, you've got here, finally, we're omitting the word adult from our masthead. A number of our teenage readers have written saying it makes them feel a bit awkward. And I think that would have been the case. Definitely, that was a very sensible. Spider-Man will appear every month in Amazing. Didn't happen, did it? Perhaps, if your letters request it, we make his stories even longer, or have two Spider-Man stories per issue. And that didn't last either. They had a few of those early issues, the ones that were obviously probably going to be Amazing Fantasy 16 and 17. Obviously, they had those split stories, but it didn't happen. Of course, became Spider-Man #1. Great issue, and that was that. And you got a bit of bonus material. As mentioned, I don't know what's in the latest volume, because like I say, there is a new version of this, and it does seem to say 416 for this one and 448 for the other one. But let's have a look. Yeah, it must be about 416. So did they add a lot more bonus material? I don't know, because I haven't got it, so I can't tell. So it's one of those things. Maybe they included some more sort of details like that. One thing that I've noticed that seems to be missing recently is that there was going to be a Spider-Man panel by panel, obviously, of these sort of the Amazing Fantasy as well as Spider-Man #1. But that seems to have drifted into Nonville at the moment. So it's coming out from Abraham's Comics Art. And it seems to just drift and drift. I now notice it's 2025 it's coming out, because it was coming out fairly recent, last couple of months. And then it suddenly disappeared. Very strange. However, completely off on sorry, but lots of the stories were reprinted, and they were probably reprinted in things like the Alan Class ones as well. And also maybe some of the UK comics as well. There you got Strange Tales, Monsters on Prime. I loved picking those up. I did not realise at the time that they were all part of the Amazing Fantasy, but they were good. Still brilliant. And of course, you got there Dr. Druid. Been renamed at this point. Wasn't Dr. Doom by that point? Dr. Druid. And you got the Weird Tales, Weird Wonder Tales. What a great title that was. And of course, you've got the classic Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man. I just love that one. I've always wondered whether that's a better cover than the other one. I don't know. Comments, opinions. Do you think that's a better cover? Do you think that would have worked better? Would that have sold it to you? I think the Spider-Man looks a bit odd the way they've done that. A bit strange, isn't it? Also in this issue, you've got... I wonder why they always include like blurbs, amazing, new... that sort of thing. Maybe it just sort of covers up Spidey. Maybe they just didn't want that. Maybe it just didn't look dramatic enough. I don't know. But of course, you've got the first issue there. And that's just great, isn't it? Just include the original art. Would have been lovely if they had done a scan before actually inking it. Wouldn't it have been brilliant to have seen the original sort of pages before they were inked? Sadly, lost forever. But that's still, you've got Steve Ditko there, of course. And then you go all the way through and you've got a few more pages here. And you can see obviously number 15 there. Again, one of the stories from there. And on to the last bits, which are just these are lovely Monster Menace and the Curse of the Weird. And that is the Amazing Fantasy Omnibus. I think one of the loveliest collections of Omnibus, because it's just a nice little sort of just right size, perfect to read. You can pick it up anytime. Just go through it, have a chuckle from some of the stories, because they are great little stories, but they are of their time. So it's just a nice collection. And I would love to see, like I say, collections of some of the other ones in this sort of format. It would be just a nice little volume like this. Just bring out some, maybe it doesn't even have to be complete. Maybe we should never expect that Millie the Model will ever get a complete, but it would be nice to see a Million Model Omnibus collection, something like this. Reasonably priced sort of collection, but a nice collection of, 10 or 15 of the stories put in this sort of set. But what amazing collection this is. Amazing Fantasy Omnibus. You should be able to pick up copies reasonably easily. And like I say, the cover I've got is going to be slightly different, probably the one you'll find. You might find this one, I don't know. And you've got this, Amazing Adult Fantasy. You've got all the stories there, and of course the classic one at the end. And you can see the details there for that one. Oh, comments, always great. Also, please subscribe to the channel, add in new videos all the time about various books. Also, a like or dislike, always appreciated as well. Bye.